people with hearts alive. Let us gather in these darkening times. Let us huddle close around fireplaces, gaze upon each other's faces.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
For all I could see.
Holy places.
Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah. Thank you for joining us for Sout Ilaahi Muslim Art and Film Festival. This festival will be happening for the next few days till 10 August, 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. Today, we'll be featuring Ameera Aslam live poetry reading. Ameera Aslam is a writer, poet, editor, and activist. Her work has appeared in Karyawan, Ramadan.sg, Muslim.sg, Islamicevents.sg, Masjid Khalid, Darul Arqam, SimplyIslam.sg, Rumi Center, Masjid Al-Naim, and more. She edits, translates, and proofreads for Nasutara Books, Wasila Press, and Karyawan, and others. She was the founding editor of MuslimBuzz.sg, a popular online Muslim magazine. Her activism includes speaking out against domestic violence and supporting domestic violence survivors, and raising awareness and funds for migrant workers in Singapore. Her activism work has been featured in Berita Harian, Street Times, and Berita Media Corp. She currently works at a tech startup and also the World Best Muslim crowdfunding platform, Lunch Good, helping incredible Muslims all over the globe. Interesting fact, she is from Singapore but would like to live in a yellow house in a snowy mountain. Without further ado, let's welcome Ameera Aslam to take over the stage.
Hi, Assalamualaikum everybody. Thank you so much for the introduction, and obviously to Sout Ilaahi for having me. So I have been invited basically to just read my poetry. So I've decided to read, I think, 5 poems. So I think 3 of those are from my book. So you can see my background is actually my book cover, and this is what the book looks like. It's like really shiny and very pretty, I think. And 2 of the poems will be from something that I wrote, I guess, fairly recently, like maybe the past few months, like in this year. So the poems that were included in this book are actually poetry that I've written in the past 12 years. So like without further ado, I will read the first one, which is called Mujahada. So Mujahada I wrote in Ramadan of last year. Yeah, I think Ilaahi they will probably be showing the poem on the screen, but if not, then you'll just have to listen to me read it for you. So this one is called Mujahada. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In an era of life hacks and automation, of Big Macs and inattention, we have less time for contemplation, are disappointed with disconnection, not just from others, but from the divine, our heart's turner, our soul's lifeline. There is no shortcut, no life hack to this. The spiritual journey is the same for all ages. From the Prophet's time to the end of days, from one sheikh to the next, is the same always. There's no skipping past tawbah or fasting half a day. Qiyam is qiyam, your nafs dismay. No amount of books can save you or purify your heart. This path is for the doers, not just the smart. Mujahada is a bother, it never gets easier. But God is merciful, the honey does get sweeter. The real gets realer, the pleasure more intense. If you willingly, patiently remove your nonsense. The trials in the past are the trials today. Envy is envy in every community. Human hearts haven't evolved like in Darwin's theory. The Prophet, his guidance are relevant as can be. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Yes, so I think a lot of my poems are really about being on the spiritual path, and like as this poem was talking about, like it really doesn't get easier. The test just look differently. It just feels differently. You just have to always be on your toes and making sure that your ego doesn't win too much at the end of the day. And then the second poem is called Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So in an interview that I did with Khalid Ajmain from Ilaahi, I think probably like last month, he did ask me what was my motivations for writing poetry, or what were my aspirations. And I had said that one of my biggest inspirations was Qasida Burda, which is written by Imam Busairi. And so in that, I'm pretty sure, most of us know about it, like probably written like hundreds of years ago, but he wrote it out of, like love and dedication to the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And because of writing that poem, he was paralyzed, but then after writing that poem, he had a dream that the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam came to him and wrapped him in a cloak, i.e. the burda. And then when he woke up, he was cured. And so I feel like, I hope one day that, the poems that I write, that hopefully they are, sincere, and it would also grant me that same healing, or the results that Imam Busairi got from writing his poetry. So mine is not obviously as long or as poetic as his. Mine is really short. So this is the poem called Muhammad. Ya Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Is there a word sweeter than your name? Is there a man more deserving of your fame? Not just in this world, but in the seven heavens. The man, the old, the child, the burak, the angels, the ocean, the date palm tree, all praise you indefinitely. Ya Habibi, thank you. Thank you for Islam, for the prayer, for the fast, for the Hajj and Zakah and Istikhara, for an excellent example of how to be, for letting me see this dunya filter-free, for all that you are and the secrets you carry. Thank you for loving us and for loving me. Thank you for your mercy and your intercession. Thank you in advance, and thank you for today. Thank you for never leaving me, especially when I went astray. Thank you for praising God when I do good. Thank you for asking for my forgiveness. Thank you for being the light in my darkness, my only hope, my cure, my brightness. Thank you for your love, and thank you for your heart. I thank Allah for you, the fruit of my heart. Yes, so that's the poem called Muhammad. And then I'll read one more from this book, but I'll save that for the end. In the meantime, I'll read two poems that I wrote earlier this year. So one is called Rich Beyond Measure. And I wrote this because I was traveling earlier this year in the US, and I was on the train a lot from Chicago to Detroit. It was like 4 or 5 hour train ride. And, they have all these like nature scenes that we don't get to see in Singapore. Like, like Singapore, we do have our nature spots, but most of it, it's a very urban place. And so, like being on this long train ride got me to really think about the fact that like I'm experiencing winter, which is quite rare. And also seeing all these scenes of lakes and ducks and all sorts of things. And so, and also I was just thinking about just my life and how like I never imagined that I would have been in the US. Like it was a completely unexpected a trip. It was for work, but also a few other things. And then so I got to really think about a lot of things, especially on a 5 hour train ride. And so I wrote this on the train. So this one is called Rich Beyond Measure. I think about winter and death and home and roots, and I think about God a lot. I think about loss and joy and what love really means. And then I think about blessings. I think of my family and my friends and my teachers and my faith and the prophet and the prayer. And I think about how peaceful I feel on the prayer mat, though I'm miles away from home and it's snowing outside. I think about this feeling that I feel that is the same feeling no matter what time zone I'm in. I think about how I miss the prophet, but he feels closer today, even as I'm all alone. I think about winter and I think about God. After grieving, God makes things beautiful again. I think about death and I think about God because death is the door I pass to be with Him. I think about loss and I think about God. And then I wonder if there are losses at all. I think about joy and I think about God. And I can't think anymore. My heart expands, my words disappear, my tears are all that's left. You are home and you are roots and you are love, my Lord. You send the prophet, you send the cure. You've given me all I have. No matter what losses I think I have endured, if you still grant me faith, I am the richest of them all. So this poem, I guess it wasn't just like, I think before I wrote this poem, I was also listening to a podcast by Auntie Tamara Gray, and she has a podcast called Joy Jot, and it was really interesting to me because when she wrote the introduction, she was talking about how the book was written at one of the saddest, most difficult times of her life, but then the book ended up being called Joy Jot, and I feel like that's the same for me when I wrote this poem, where like I feel like I could only really truly experience or appreciate joy through joy, and having all this like love for my religion or finding comfort in it because I had gone through like loss, like I would say like real loss, right? Like, not just people who had passed on like my grandfather or my previous Shay, but also other kinds of losses. So the loss of dreams that you thought you had for yourself, like ambitions for your life or what you thought it was going to look like, and then it turns out to be something completely different. But a completely different, which is where I am now, actually isn't that bad. In fact, I think my life is really, really good, even though some people might say like, oh, but you've gone through all these things. But yeah, I think like the reason why I can feel so much like gratitude or joy is because I have more appreciation of it because of the stuff that I had to, I guess, that was taken away from me, or things that I had lost along the way. So that one's called Rich Beyond Measure. And I guess in the podcast, Auntie Tamara Gray also said that like, we can be tested in a lot of ways, whether it's financially, losing people, losing all sorts of things, but that we should also ask that we are never tested in our faith. And so that's what I really feel. I feel like I've never been more grateful for having Islam in my life, because I haven't really, I mean, I hope that I'll never be tested in it. Like that would be something that I probably wouldn't be able to carry, right? So hopefully we don't get tested in that, right? Yeah. Okay, so let me now move on to the next poem that I wrote earlier. I think probably I can't remember if it was in Ramadan this year, but it was something I wrote this year, and it's not in the book, but it's called A Prayer for Protection. So I'm a very word person, clearly, and so I place a lot of importance on words, and I guess I get more hurt if people don't mean what they say. And so I wrote this poem as a protection. So this is how it goes. God protect us from those who wish us harm, from forked tongues and fake monks, fake friends and fake pens, with their meaningless words and poisoned praises. Today they love you, tomorrow it changes. God keep them far and keep our radar clear from those who smile in our faces, but when we turn they sneer. From those who claim to pray for us, but spread tears and break our trust. From those listening ears to our grief and fears, just waiting to share without a care. God keep us safe from heartbreakers and tongue twisters, the heartstringers and smooth talkers, those who say one thing but mean another, who don't love us but say they do, those with promises of no value. God shut them up and reveal their sham, but most of all, God, don't let us be from one of them. Yes. And then I don't know if I really want to really talk about this poem per se. I think it's quite straightforward. But I think it's like one of the things that I've really realized along the way is that our practice of Islam isn't just in the rituals. It's not just in our prayer, in our worship, but especially in the way that we deal with others. And I think, especially in this day, I'm not sure whether it's worse today than it was before, but I don't know if people really take their words seriously. Like they can just say things like, especially when you see all your Facebook ads, Instagram ads, and like all these testimonials, like I think we've come to a point where we don't even know whether we can trust those reviews. Like we're like, are you sure there's someone actually saying that, or it's just marketing, it's just fluff, people are just, putting words together. And people like don't credit, like we talk about like intellectual property, and like people just don't credit who wrote certain things and stuff like that. But even in our interactions with one another, it's like, human to human, like marketing aside, right? Like yeah, I think we should, I try to, not say things that I don't mean. And I see that as an extension of our faith, right? Like that's how I feel, because I think that the prophet, obviously he never lied. But also like, just in terms of like just saying something and holding yourself accountable to what you are saying to someone. I think that's what I was really thinking about when I probably wrote this. And so that is how we come to the end, the last poem. And so I know Sout Ilaahi is doing a fundraiser for a hospital. I think you can see they have an image there for the hospital in Senegal. So I think this is not their first fundraiser. And I know this because I work for Launch Good, so where their fundraising campaign is on. So in a bid to, also share their campaign, then I will read this poem called Charity, that I also wrote in Ramadan last year. Let me just find the page. Okay. So this one is called Charity. What a beautiful thing, this charity. A parting with your heart and money, and still the one who profits is you. Sure, someone else may benefit, a mouth or two you help to feed, but the scale that's getting heavy is yours. A sin or more may fall from you for this good deed you tried to do, and you get to prevent calamity too. What you give isn't yours to begin with. Let's give from that perspective and delight in the spiritual high. Giving from what we are given ensures that we are not stricken with the disease of greed and want. For surely your wealth will now be blessed. May it be a blessing and not a test. Lord, accept it and please fix our mess. So that's charity. And I think it's also, I think the concepts in it are based on like different hadiths where the Prophet ﷺ has said like, give charity without delay and it will remove calamities, your sins will be removed, and how, when we understand that, the wealth that we have is not really like ours to begin with, like we're just taking care of it right now, but it all belongs to God. And so I think like when we think about that, then we'll probably hopefully be more generous and also more like responsible in the way that we spend our money. But yes, so those are the 5 poems I decided to read today. So yeah, thank you for joining me and indulging me while I read my poems. They did tell me to talk about my book a little bit, so I did show you earlier. And the book, inshallah, it will be at Wardah Books, I think, tomorrow onwards, and a few other bookstores. But yeah, it will be at Wardah Bookstore if you want to get it for yourself. Thank you.
MashaAllah, Sister Ameera, thank you so much for being here and sharing the wonderful 5 poems. You know what? I feel that I love the part where she shared about Reach Beyond Measures. She mentioned a book writer, Tamara Gay. I love to read her book on Joy Jots. I used to attend her and meet her in person. Of course, I hope, I really, really hope that wherever that you share, you impart the same positivity to the audience here. With that, I would like to thank you again for being here and sharing with us for what you have to offer.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Okay, for those who have watched, I hope it has cultivated in you, as it did for me, a better appreciation to drive for positive change. That being said, we would like to take this opportunity to mention that you can make contribution to Sout Ilaahi, Build a Hospital in Senegal initiative. You can click on the link, bit.ly Senegal Hospital. Inshallah, this hospital will be able to provide medical and healthcare facilities for over 25,000 women, men, and children in the city of Medina Bayit. Furthermore, as part of Sout Ilaahi Muslim Art and Film Festival 2020, we'll be selling exclusive t-shirts that we are going to go for sale at $25 Singapore. For this limited period of time, we may check our social media website, IG, and Facebook for more details. If you are interested, please drop us a DM, or you can check out our website to get yours today while it's not last. Let me say it again. These have a limited stock and it's only sold for a limited period of time. Up next, we do stay tuned at 6 p.m. for Sheikh Matzal for his live performance here, followed with an exclusive interview with Yusuf Elf on the philosopher of P. Ramli and the lesson we learned at 9 p.m. And last but not least, join us at 11 p.m. for a panel discussion with Ustad Firdaus and Johari Aziz on Horror Loving of Jinns, Pontianak and Black Magic. Once again, we would like to thank you for joining Sout Ilaahi Muslim Arts and Film Festival for this particular segment. Assalamualaikum.